Welcome back to Tightlining Maryland. I appreciate you tuning back in, and today what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of winter Euro nymphing, and we'll even sprinkle in some usage of an indicator and talk about the reasons why we would do that and how it's effective on this system. So with no further ado, let's get into it and hopefully teach you a tip or a trick that maybe you can utilize the next time you hit the stream this winter. Alrighty, so we're hooked up with probably our 7th or 8th fish of the day, but I didn't have the camera on. I rarely put anything on film if the camera isn't on, but I figured since it was a little bit better fish, we'd throw it on real quick. And by better, you know, just better than average for this river. What we're doing, which we'll explain here in a second, is we're fishing a double nymph rig on an indicator. Alrighty, so here's that trout, a little thin, but still got his par marks, roughly about 9-10 inches. We're gonna slide him back in. Alrighty, so a winter trout to be had, and that's, I don't know, somewhere in the range of about 7 or 8 trout caught today. All right, so let's talk about our setup. What we're using is a 10-foot 3-weight. It's the Reddington Field Kit. We've got on here a micro leader, which I'm not sure if at this point, based off of the fact I haven't recorded it yet and released it, but I'm gonna do a video on the leader. So we've got that micro leader on, and then basically where that ends, what we've got on here is an indicator tied to our tippet, which is roughly about 4 to 5 feet, to an egg pattern, which will show off real quick in case you are somebody that likes to buy flies. This egg pattern has just simply crushed it both today and even yesterday on a guide trip. And then a pink beaded hare's ear, which is what that last fish just took. So right now we've got about 7 or 8 fish on the board. We're trying to basically just get down deep and fish effectively with nymphs, and get in some of these wintering holes that these fish in the deeper pockets have selected to use for the winter. So let's get some drifts in here and see if we can't pick up another one here in this hole. So simply speaking, we just lay that cast out. We want that indicator to hit. We want those flies to clear, and you know, just get a nice slow clean drift through these very slow holes. You know, it's really hard to Euro nymph some of these, you know, pockets that really just don't have a ton of current. And one of the tricks that you can use to kind of get better drifts through holes that otherwise would be hard to nymph, and you can get nice long drifts. I mean, you can see that this drift is going to end up going somewhere about 20 to 25 feet by the time it's all said and done. And with that said, the other thing that I like about the indicator, and we're just using a simple airlock, is that when you use the Indy, what it typically does, from what I've found, is that even on a pseudo poor cast, eventually what's going to happen is those bugs get in line with that indicator and kind of fall into the current seam that the indicator's in. So I really find that that's helpful to get nice long slow drifts that are all in line with one another, because when you're using 2 flies, what ends up happening is sometimes those flies are in different lanes, and then you get you know, a bad drift, and you know, things get kind of fouled up. So there's another one. That guy hit the egg. We're gonna get our net and put them in the basket. There we go. So the egg pattern has proved to be effective today. The waltz worm has proved to be effective today. Just simple stuff. And in the winter, you want to give them just enough to make them interested, but not too much so that they're disinterested. There we go. So that's out. Let's take off our glove. Wet the hand real quick, and back he goes. So 2 fish out of this hole, pretty quick order. You know, winter fishing can be pretty difficult, I'll be honest with you. You know, this morning when I got to the stream, it was 25 degrees. You know, for the first hour and a half, I really couldn't feel my feet, and that's never fun. But you know, there's nobody else out. It's a beautiful day. It's going to get into the 40s. Upper 40s at that, and you know, I rarely get a day to fish for me. So with that being said, it just seemed like it was the perfect storm to get out and you know, not force the issue, but enjoy time on the water. And you know, on a recent poll that I had done, you know, for what would people like to see with Euro nymphing, a lot of people responded like, hey, I'd really like to see, you know, something about winter Euro nymphing. And you know, albeit right now we're not doing the traditional stuff, because we're using an Indy, I think that the versatility of using that Indy speaks to, you know, how you can kind of do more than just one thing. I think oftentimes with Euro nymphing, people get very much so pigeonholed to thinking there's one way of doing it and only one way. So anyway, 2 quick fish. Let's see if we can't get another one out of here. So the other thing that I should mention in terms of, like, you know, what makes this a good way to fish is when you're nymphing with the Indy, you know, a lot of times what we're doing with Euro nymphing is we're staying tight to our sighter. We're really trying to, you know, focus on what's going on with that. So we still do that same concept. I don't know if you can pick it up in the video or not between the glare and the distance, but when it comes to Euro nymphing with an Indy, what you're doing is right after I make that cast, what I'm doing is I'm lifting up my rod tip and I'm getting that sighter off of the water and getting a clean drift, or as clean of a drift as I can, while staying tight to the indicator. That's really critical if you want to you know, have success fishing with an indicator on a Euro system, is just focusing on fishing the Indy, if you will. So, you know, staying tight, picking up your slack, managing your line, and basically, you know, staying tight and in line. Ooh, that's a nice fish. That is a nice fish. This is one that you want to land. You know, nobody loses sweat over or sleep over losing some of the smaller guys, but this guy's alligator rolling and not happy. So, oh. You knew what you were doing. Oh, there we go. That's a good fish. That is a good winner fish. Holy smokes. We're gonna take a moment to get this guy on film for you. That's a quality fish right there. Alrighty, we're gonna get this guy back. All right, so this beautiful brown, probably every bit of 15, 16 inches. Nice big paddleboard fins on him. He's ready to go back. Let's slide him in. There he goes. Alrighty, so pretty quick order here. We got 3 fish out of this hole. The first one really wasn't on camera for the hook set, but the second 2 were. And with that being said, that indicator fishing in the winter is just super effective. Now, don't get me wrong, you can absolutely utilize it other times of the year. I just think that it tends to shine a little bit when it comes to these slow wintering holes. Thus, you can get those clean, effective drifts. And truth be told, I would not have caught either or any of those 3 fish, but specifically the last 2, if it weren't for using that indicator. So you know, just knowing your situations, what makes it a good spot to kind of utilize it, I think that's important. And I think credit where credit is due is important. So if you're not listening to the Trout Bitten podcast, you really need to give that a shot. I've listened to every single episode from Dom ever since they started. Just a really beautiful project. I mean, all the stuff he's done for that website's incredible. But the moral of the story is that one of those podcast episodes, what he did is he was talking about the Indy and how he utilizes it. And as somebody that when I first started Euro nymphing, I never, and I do mean 0% of the time, ever use an indicator. I was listening to that podcast, he mentioned the use of it, and as soon as he mentioned the percent that he used it, I was just floored. I believe it was 30 or 40% of the time, I want to say it was 40% of the time he uses an indicator. And that, as somebody that just never used one, it really made me question, am I doing things correctly? And you know, those fish don't occur today. That's 3 of my 10 fish, so roughly 30% of my production today would not have occurred without that indicator. And as a matter of fact, without, you know, blabbering on too much here, we did that yesterday on a guide trip. We had caught roughly, I don't know, 4 or 5 fish in the day, and we were Euro nymphing and things were going well. We throw in an indicator at a hole that just called for it, and next thing you know, we caught 5 fish out of that hole that I just don't think we would have if we were just traditionally Euro nymphing. So be versatile, be mindful of the situations, and adapt. And if you do that, you're gonna have success on the water. Alrighty, so let's take a look at the holes that we've got before us. And if we just think about, well, what's presented to us, we've got great structure. The flows right now are incredible in this river. The reason why we're going with the Indy is that it's just a little slow. We don't quite have that Euro nymphing quality water right here. I mean, you could, but it's a little harder. But with that indicator, we can kind of float right through these slow pockets where we're just off of the main current seam, and thus getting our effective drifts and landing a few more fish than we otherwise would. Alrighty, so here's a look at my fly box. I just want to walk you through it real quick because it's pretty simple, but basically says all you need to know about the winter. So one of the main things you got, and it's right there, is the egg pattern. That gets you through a lot of hard days here on the stream. I've also got a couple newer bugs up at the top. I've got on some tag nymphs that are kind of hot spotted or hot butted, that are made out of pheasant tail with some CDC and collars. And then right next to that with the pink bead is the Tasmanian Devil. Really like that fly. On top of that, here is like a CDC hackled quill midge, and then finally another winter staple that I've come to really love is a pink beaded waltz worm. You know, I hope that people pick them up and give them a shot, because some of those bugs that I just mentioned, people are quickly finding that if they haven't tried them before, they can be really effective, especially this time of year. Some of them will fish, you know, well beyond just the winter months. But the point of the matter is, those flashy imitations that, again, like I believe I mentioned on film before, but if not, I'll mention it again, just enough to draw a fish's attention, but not so much that it's going to turn them away. Those egg patterns are great post spawn. The Tasmanian Devil almost looks like an egg with the pink bead, and then you add a hackle to that. The waltz worm is just an absolute tried and true, can't fail you type of bug, and I've got a couple different variations for how I tie them up. But the moral of the story is, give yourself a chance, try those flies out if you haven't before, and I think you're going to find that you're going to fall in love pretty quick and hopefully catch a few more fish. So alrighty, so let's head on out. Probably a decent area again to use an Indy, but there's also some good pocket water up here and certainly up there, so that's why I'm gonna leave it off. What we've got on is stuff that's a little smaller than what we've been using for a good chunk of today. Earlier today we were using the egg pattern and you know, different tag flies that went with that. Well, actually the egg was the tag, but earlier today we were basically going a little heavier and a little bit more bold. But now that the water's warming and we're starting to get into the potential for pocket water, I've actually got on a CDC bug with that quill, and I've also got on a pink beaded waltz. And what we're doing is we're just trying to be as very delicate as possible, using a micro leader and just tight lining through these runs that maybe a fish might be, you know, sitting down in. So hopefully we can get one or two out of either this section or up there, and, you know, put another one on the board and maybe call it a day. So nice long drifts. You know, in the winter you definitely need to be mindful of you know, being stealthy, but the other component is right now that I got the sun behind me and it's putting my glare on the water, and that part makes it hard to see, but also makes it easy for the fish to see me. So all the more reason to get nice long drifts and basically try to fool these fish from distance. So there we go, that's a nicer fish. Took in that softer, slow water. We needed to add some weight to get down because we weren't quite meeting the fish on their terms where they're at, and sure enough, that yielded us another fish to hopefully close out the day. And he took an experimental fly that I just tied. We can thank Hotspot Nymphing for that. That bug's already out, so we'll never officially see it on camera, but Justin, you are responsible for that. Because he took that pheasant tail variation. It's basically a tag nymph, but anyway, we're gonna get this guy back, even though he doesn't want to be held. He just wants to be back. So see you later, bud. There we go, that's a good one. Now we're getting those nice slow drifts. We're in contact with our flies. We're definitely to depth, and we're gonna have a much better rate of success if we, you know, can consistently fish it that way. So there's another one. There's another one. Going aerial, that one took the Tasmanian Devil. So a little bit of everything here. But you like to see the activity for late December. You know, it's one of those things where if you brave the cold and you're willing to get out in 28 degrees or less in the morning, you know, and fight through it, you can put fish on the board and successfully have yourself a good day. A lot of people hang it up for the winter, and I think that's a mistake. There's a lot of good fishing to be had, and truthfully, that's one of my favorite times to fish, because it's less people on the water, and you know, fish aren't seeing nearly as much in terms of presentation, so they tend to be a little bit less picky. Plus they have less food to pick from whenever they're, you know, having to figure out what they're going to eat, because that pipeline of food has died down.